What up, artists? My name is Dwayne Jones. I'm the creative director and founder of a lifestyle brand called Art Pays Me. This is the Art Pays Me podcast, and I'm passionate about finding ways that people like you and me can make a living for ourselves off of our creativity. And, maybe we can make the world a better place at the same time. Let's get into it. Welcome to Art Pays Me. Today we have Sunil Sarwal. So Sunil, I first became aware of you through former guest Allison Knott, and she insisted that you were somebody that I needed to know, and she's like, you would love him, you'll love him." And then I followed you on Twitter, and the tweet game was elite, and had me in deep thought, but also laughing at the same time. So that's always a win for me.
Thanks.
And yeah, and then I finally met you in person at a Creative Kick event, which was
Yeah.
E3C before, and that was actually it was a live Art Pays Me with Ilana and Jordan. You were there.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
what do you do?
Okay. So I'm a branding consultant for food companies. So if they're creating or launching a new food or drink product, I might help them on the branding side to figure out what they need to say about the product so that consumers see it and understand it and get it and are interested in it. And I'll help them to then express that brand on the packaging side of things so that when people see it in the store, they understand what they're looking at, they want to buy it. So I work with clients mostly in Canada, Ontario and Quebec, and some local maritime companies as well.
Okay, cool. And is that through Small Monsters, the Small Monsters?
Yeah, that's it. It's the small. I call myself the Small Monsters. Yeah.
And it's just you, or do you have a team?
It's just me now. I used to have a team. We were in Montreal for about 10 years. We had a nice little office downtown, and there was 5 of us. We had a pretty good reputation out there. But for family reasons, actually, I had to move back to my hometown here, Halifax. And since then, I've just been running things on my own while I get my footing again.
Okay. You know what? Let's step back because I feel like I cut you off and you're about to say something after the Allison intro.
Oh, I was going to say, Allison's told me the same thing about you, that I needed to meet you, that we would get along really well. And she took me to your art show, your fashion show at the library. It was one of the first events that I attended when I moved here to Halifax.
Okay. You know what? I think she might have mentioned that she had you there.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So yeah, that's funny. All right.
Allison's a connector. She knows a lot of people. She knows how to get people in touch with each other to build the community. That's what I love about her.
Yeah, she's so like fired up about just the idea of creativity and artists doing business things, and she's got like this endless energy for it, a lot more energy than I do. And
Yeah. Whenever I'm stuck on something, like on a business thing, or like this has happened, I don't know how to talk to the client about it. I always email her. You got a second? This is what's going on, and she always has good advice. So it's been actually really a wonderful friendship for me.
Yeah, she's great. So everyone, actually, you should check out episode 9. That's where Allison made an appearance on Art Pays Me. So yeah, make sure you check that out. So tell me about Small Monsters. Like, I was looking at your work, right?
Mhm.
And the from a packaging standpoint, like what made you kind of go that direction? Was that a deliberate choice, or is that just it just sort of happened organically?
Yeah, like most careers, I kind of got just sort of pushed this way by currents. I've been interested in design for a long time. I originally studied architecture. Uh, I wanted to do things that were tangible and tactile, and I ended up getting a job. So I went to NASCAD, and then I moved to Montreal after graduation, and I ended up getting a job at Mega Bloks in the packaging department. And that's where I learned about packaging. And it wasn't necessarily that I had an interest in packaging. It's just it was just a job. I needed work, and I loved toys. I loved Lego growing up, so I was happy to work there, and I learned a lot when I was there about the technical side and about the marketing side of consumer packaging.
Hmm.
And then I worked for a couple other companies, and then in the crisis in 2008, I got laid off, and I just started freelancing from my living room. And from there, I had enough of a network that work started coming in, and I started doing first just packaging design for anything, and then packaging and branding. But my passion has always been food, not just for work. I'm kind of obsessed with food. One of those people that I'll spend hours just wandering through the grocery store. Well, not these days, but I used to spend hours just looking at stuff. I loved it. So I tried to over the years kind of focus myself more towards food, and so now it's really just that food and drink branding and packaging.
You know what? I really got a sense of that, um, based on like the ways. So you've got this saying on your homepage of your site where you talk about, um, just this idea of people wanting to touch and feel and pick things up, and that's what
Yeah.
your design, is supposed to sort of convey. And it's interesting that you'd be so effective at this because you have this genuine love for food and for that experience. So it's, yeah, even though these things aren't planned, I get, in some ways they kind of are planned, right? It's interesting.
Yeah, it definitely fits really well with my passions because I love working with words. I love drawing. I love working with clients, talking to them directly. And I'm crazy about food. So this is kind of all the things that I want to do anyway, all my passions, and I get to do it for a living. So yeah, it's worked out pretty nicely.
So you do all the illustration on your packaging?
I do most of the illustration on my packaging. If it's something that's outside of my own skill set, I'll hire somebody else. I'm always trying to work with other people. There's a few designers here. There's somebody that does really beautiful hand lettered cards, and I'm really trying to get a project where I can work with her. I've hired Allison actually to do some illustrations on packaging in the past as well.
Okay.
Uh, but a lot of it I do on my own as well.
Very cool. So were you the type of kid that was doodling all the time on the desk and all that kind of stuff?
All the time. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what, I used to, I had a few things that I always did. I always drew like a martial arts dude. Um, I always drew manga eyes, and then I started to go by the moniker Action Man when I was in high school, and it was because like I was this weird martial arts kid who, I used to do the Jean Claude Van Damme splits in between chairs
No.
and all that stuff. So I just became like Action Man. And it's kind of still stuck. It's still my video game uh, avatar name or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I started like tagging Action Man on all the desks all over the school and everything.
Were you into comic books then too?
I was. I got really in. I started with Archie comics, but as
Yeah.
from an art standpoint, I was really into. Um, I think it's Dan McFarlane, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Image Comics and Spawn,
Yeah.
and then I got into manga, and I I didn't become as nerdy about it as some people because I think for me, I was way more interested in just the drawing than the actual reading. So I basically I would just buy the ones that had illustration styles that I thought were cool, and
Yeah.
then I'd read them just because, but then just basically spend a lot of time trying to figure out how did they do that person in that position? How did they do those eyes? How did they do the hand there? So
Oh,
yeah.
the hands. Yeah, the hands and the feet.
Yeah. Were you into comics?
A bit, yeah, yeah. It's kind of the same thing. I didn't get like deeply into it, but I used to love just looking at the drawings and how they did them, and yeah, spending a lot of time kind of tracing them and redrawing things to try to get it right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. There was one point where I thought that I wanted to be a comic book artist, but uh,
that was originally what I wanted to do too. Comic book artist or a cartoonist, and at one point I just said I don't know how I'd ever explain this to my parents, um, so I went into architecture instead.
so were they the type that were like kind of skeptical of a creative career in general?
Yeah, yeah, anything that wasn't a doctor was never gonna be good enough for them. Typical Indian parents.
Yeah, yeah, I get that. Um, Mine were kind of like nervous in Bermuda. The big in it's like finance is like kind of the big industry there. So I think they were naturally
Mm.
inclined to push me in that direction, but I struggled so much in high school. I think they just kind of gave up when I said graphic design. They were like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, yeah. My sister was a writer, and she was really good at it, and she gave it all up, to become a doctor because they pushed her so hard. But for me, I was really bad in high school too, and I think they were just happy that it was like, "Okay, we don't have to worry about him. He won't be homeless." So, yeah, they kinda yeah,
But
did it.
that's
Good.
interesting though. You got. I'm wondering with the graphic design thing, is it like for me anyway? Even I find with my fine art, I just really like the play of words and images together, and comic books basically do that.
Mhm.
And it just I've seen that seems to be a commonality in some graphic designers.
Yeah. Yeah,
Mm,
I think that passion for drawing especially, it's so nice to be immersed in the work, and the nice thing about comic books is that there's so many different styles and so many different types and so many stories. It's,
yeah,
especially these days, it can be nice to get lost in something like that.
yeah, yeah. So when you're in the process, so I was looking at your packaging, and I see very much a close attention to detail. This is what I'm getting anyway.
Yeah.
And like, how important to you is the perfect font? Because I get the impression that this is something you put a lot of energy into.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, on one hand, in what I do, graphic design is the last part of it. It's the least important part because really, what's key is the ideas that go into it. Really, the branding that goes behind it. But when it comes to the graphic design, typography is make or break. You can have a beautiful idea, but if you don't have good typography, it can be ruined visually. So when I had the agency, we'd get people coming in for sending in their resumes and their portfolios all the time, and the two things I would always look at was their typography and how well they could express a simple, clear concept. And if
Mm,
they couldn't do those two things, I wouldn't be interested. I wouldn't interview them. Because typography is the key. A lot of other things you can learn on the job, but a good eye for type is make or break for a design.
mm. So one thing for me for typography, and I'm curious if this is something for you and for others actually, is sometimes I get things from clients and the wording doesn't it doesn't work. Do you ever find yourself becoming somewhat of a writer in those situations where you're like, you know what, maybe you should change it to say this instead?
Definitely. Most of the projects that I'm doing, since it's food packaging, the clients are coming to me with nothing. Sometimes they just have a food product, they don't even have a name, so I get to do the writing myself.
Gotcha.
If they already have all of the writing, that means they already have the brand, in which case I usually tell them not to even hire me. I say just go, they can go find a graphic designer if they just need somebody to create a package. So I'm in a good position that I'm starting early enough in the project that I get to decide what those words are going to be, and I make sure that that's going to work in the space and in the feeling. Um, and create the right mood that I want anyway.
Right. So for you, it's like about that entire conversation, not just I'm the person that makes it look good. You want to be really involved in everything.
Yeah, yeah. Because food packaging is a funny thing. It's like a lot of my clients, they're not going to spend a lot of money advertising for food. Food's very, very small margin. So the first time a consumer will see the food product is going to be on shelf, and you've just got a couple seconds to like catch their attention. You've got a few seconds to draw them in, to get them to pick it up and look at it, and they have to get it right away. If they don't understand what it is, they're just going to glance over it because the store's crowded, it's noisy, kids are crying, you've got to be home in time for supper. If you don't get it, if it doesn't attract you, you're just going to get the same thing you always get. So
Mm,
there's a lot of weight in making it quickly and easily effective.
right.
So I need to be involved right from the very beginning to make sure that that happens.
Mm. Do you find that there's this sometimes struggle with uh maybe being so minimal? Like for me, I'll put my personal experience with it. I
Uh-huh.
go minimal first. That's kind of my thing. I'm like super bare bones, and then I add other elements later for the most part. Sometimes I have an illustration or a photo in mind that I build everything around, but a lot of times if I don't, I go completely bare bones. But then it's like, okay, it's clear what it says, but is it something that people are going to be delighted by and want, you know?
Yeah,
So like there's this balance between delight and actual communicating what this thing is.
yeah.
And yeah, do you ever find yourself battling that, or is it more intuitive to you to just sort of know that right mix?
No, I don't think it's intuitive, but I don't have that battle necessarily either. Because the way I will work is we'll figure out ahead of time what, say, the brand pillars need to be for this product so that people get it. So we might say this one needs to be maybe minimal and elegant and luxurious. And so then we'll create a graphic design around it that is those things. But maybe we're going to say, no, this needs to feel natural and authentic and handmade, in which case we're not going to go with a minimal look. We're going to go with something that's going to be very different. And so the graphic design is always going to follow directly from the brand principles that we've already created. That's why, like, the work that you see me doing, they're all completely different because none of them really have a style. Like, in what we do for consumer packaged goods, we can't have a house style. We can't
Mm,
have something that looks like, oh, that looks like the Small Monsters did it. It has to work for that product and that brand instead. And we have to be kind of invisible. So I can't come in ahead of time with my own preconceptions of how it's going to look. Back when I used to do more general graphic design, like say I'm doing posters or an invitation or a CD cover, then yeah, totally. I like this, I like this style, I like these colors, I like these fonts. And a lot of it was subjective. A lot of it was my choice. I'd be playing around with things, but I don't get to do that anymore. Everything has to follow from the brand principles that we've already established with the client ahead of time. So sometimes the clients will say, like, yeah, I don't like this color, or I don't like that. Um, and personally, I don't actually care what the client likes or doesn't like. It's all about the product and what's going to tell the story of that brand and the story of that product to help it to sell. So we were working on a project once, and it was for these vegan bites, and they had to look natural and healthy. And we did the package, and it was green and lovely because green is a natural, healthy color. And the client was like, I don't like the green. Can you make it white? And I was like, yeah, sure, no problem. Because white is also natural and healthy. And I said, look, if you had asked for orange, I would have said no. It doesn't fit with the brand. But white is fine. It's no problem. If they had said they wanted to be black, I would say no. Black looks sophisticated. Black looks upscale, but it doesn't look natural and healthy. So it's not telling the story that we need to tell. So by building the design on the brand values, it takes the subjectivity out of it, and it takes the client's personal preferences out of it. So
right.
one, yeah,
Yeah, it gives you, that's great. It's more of a not a, I don't like to, I don't want to use the word argument, but it definitely gives you a firmer leg to stand on when you're justifying aesthetic choices.
Well, you know what? If it's just like a subjective choice, I'll tell them. Once
Hmm.
an interview with a client, it was like the first interview. We talked about the whole product and everything, and at the end, they were kind of like taken aback, and they were like, "You didn't ask us what we like." And I said, "I don't care what you like. You're not the client." It was like uh, food treats for sporting dogs, and I was like, "You guys don't even own dogs, and you're not runners." It doesn't matter what you like. All that matters is what your market likes, what your audience likes, and what they want and what they expect to see.
Yeah, and you're right. That part is the frustrating thing about when you're not involved from that top to bottom
Yeah.
process, because you often do get stuck into that subjective back and forth with a client, and you're only doing what they like. I've been in that situation many times.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I used to have on my wall a thing that said, I'm a designer, not a screwdriver, because I would hate it when the client would be like, well, I want you to change this. I want you to change that. And then I would be like, well, I'm the expert. I want respect. But the truth is, I didn't really have anything to back up my completely subjective choices other than I saw something here that I liked, and I saw something there that I liked. And there was this pattern that I've been hoping to use, and there was this typeface that I wanted to use. It was all just subjective. I was just kind of pulling it out of my butt. And at least now, with what I'm doing, there is a solid rationale and a reason. And if there isn't, I don't need to be married to it anymore.
yeah, you know what's interesting with that too? I find um, I had I started to rely a lot more on more research to justify my stuff too. But
Hmm.
when in the early days of Apple popularity, I remember I just personally, I went to NASCAD. We were taught Swiss design
Yeah.
principles a lot, and I just liked minimalism.
Mm,
So I used to always equate minimalism with good design.
same.
I
Yeah.
don't necessarily believe that anymore.
Mm.
Um, but I used to always quote, like I used to always say, "Oh, you should do this because look, Apple did this, so therefore it's good." Um,
Yeah.
and now
That,
I find clients are doing that to me,
yeah.
which is interesting. They're like, "Yeah, I want that because Apple does it," and I think blah blah blah. And I'm like, "Well, but for your thing, I don't know if that's actually the right choice."
Nice. Yes, that's it. Yeah, I've had to say the same thing. Yes, that works really well because that's the story they're telling. But you want to say something different. You want people to feel something different about you. You need to make a different choice. Yeah.
Right? Did you take semiotics at NASCAD?
Yes, that
Yeah.
had such a huge influence on me. I recommend it to everybody that I meet that's still studying graphic design. Hannah Elise's class on semiotics was a real game changer. I'm not sure I would be as good at my job as I am today if I hadn't taken that class.
Yeah, the language you used just now was all semiotics, and I
Yes,
for me it's the same thing. It completely changed my life and my view on everything that I work on with design. And big shout out to Hanno. He was
yeah.
definitely a game changer for me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know what career I would have had if I hadn't had him as my very first professor at NASCAD. Yeah, he really opened my eyes.
Very first, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a Hanno story. So I was in a semiotics class, and I was, I don't know, maybe 1 or 2 years away from graduating. I
Hmm.
loved the class, but I was not doing so well grade wise.
Uh huh.
And but like in terms of the class discussion, I was on it. I was
Okay.
always active and had things to say, and he was always like, "Yeah, that was a good insight, whatever."
Nice.
Um, and then about halfway through the term, he's like, he wanted to have a meeting with me, and he gave me this pink slip that said I should drop out of the class,
Oh,
and I had a 30% average in the class. I still have the pink slip to this
oh
day.
my gosh.
And I, you know what, I appreciate. That told me that he cared
Yeah.
because he took me aside and he said, "Look, Dwayne, like you're an intelligent guy. You have some of the best insights in this class. You not doing well is not. It doesn't even make sense. So, what can we do to get you, succeeding more?" And it
Mhm.
really just it gave me an opportunity to think about, how I'm taking this information in and how I'm translating it and stuff like that. So I was able to pull my grades up and get through it. So like I always sort of credit Hannah with um giving me that encouragement when I
Yeah.
at times didn't think I could possibly do certain things.
Yeah.
So yeah, shout out to Hannah.
Wonderful. Yeah. Back, I had a professor like that too, actually, that really turned things around for me. I started actually in engineering at Dalhousie, and it was around the same time I discovered drinking and partying, and I was doing
Yep.
really badly. I took a couple years off, and I came back, and I had this professor of thermodynamics, Dr. Ritalik, and he sat us all down, and he was like, do the homework, pay attention in class, and when it comes to the exams, it's going to be so much easier. You don't have to sit up all night trying to learn 3 months of work in like one evening. You'll already know it all and you're just reviewing. And he talked quite a bit. He took a whole class just to talk about how much better our lives will be if we just do the work now, pay attention, take the notes, do our homework. And I tried it and it just turned my life around. So by the time I got to NASCAD, I was like glasses and pocket protector and super keen, and worked my ass off.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true. Like it's once you actually learn how your mind works, I think that's why I struggled in high school and you probably were similar.
Mm,
It's like once you actually understand how your brain metabolizes information better and
mm.
find a process that works for you, then you can really start to excel.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So when you like are looking for work, how do you find clients now? So I'll take it a step back.
Mhm.
COVID-19 happens.
Yeah.
What happened to your work like as COVID-19 went down?
So things got really quiet for me. So people are buying online for their groceries suddenly, or they're just going in the store really fast, really nervous. And the big grocery stores chains said, we're not buying any new products anymore. So all my clients got their projects canceled.
Hmm.
Um, and so suddenly I don't have any work left. I was lucky that I had two big projects from a local brewery. So they're not in the grocery stores. And so those projects kept going. So I had time to really focus on them. But
Mhm.
every other project that I had just collapsed. They're just starting to come back online now. Um, this week, actually, I've had the phone's been ringing like crazy. But I had 2 months of pretty quiet times.
Mm. Is it times like that where like having a business is scary? Because that scares me to death to think about stuff like that.
Yeah, I remember the first time it happened, like when I first started in my living room in Montreal by myself, and there was like no work coming in, and a friend of mine who had been a freelancer a lot longer said, "Don't worry about it. There's always going to be times like this. Enjoy them. Work on your personal projects. Relax, catch up on your sleep, and things will balance out." She was right, and each time there's a slow period, I panic. Even now, like 15 years into my career, I still start to panic a little, but it always does kind of balance out. And now I've been doing it for so long. There's not a lot, and I'm so specialized too. There's not a lot of people in Canada that do what I do.
Mhm.
So I got a pretty good reputation. It's a small market. So now I don't really have to worry. Most of the companies that call me, they're like, I saw this, or I talked to so and so. They said you did it. And I've got a good reputation for being easy to work with. So yeah, now I know don't usually have, pandemics aside, I don't usually have to worry about that.
Got you. So
Yeah.
like, yeah, you're not necessarily out banging down doors for clients at this point?
No, I haven't looked for a client maybe in about 5 or 6 years, I'd say. I'm kind of bragging a little, but that was a huge relief when we got to the point where we didn't have to search for clients anymore. It was really, really nice.
Yeah. So we have some young designers listening. How is it that one searches for new clients?
I think if a graphic designer is looking for new clients, for me, what really helped was being specialized. That way, I'm not competing against every single person out there. Um, Also, trying not to be an art star or a prima donna really helps. Putting the ego aside, um, and making the client feel comfortable, making the client feel like you're somebody that they will want to work with, because that's in the end the biggest thing. Like, no matter how good your portfolio is or how trendy it is or how many awards you've won, most of the clients aren't going to know good design from bad design. They
Hmm.
just need something and they want to work with somebody who's nice. So as long as you are like professional and reliable and efficient, they're going to be pretty happy with you.
Mm, got you.
Uh, so when I first started, I I wasn't cheap to work with. You know, I didn't have like super low prices, but I was super reliable. I never missed deadlines. I always showed up well dressed. I was a designer, but I was a businessman first. And so the clients felt comfortable with me. They felt confident that things were going to get done. And I made mistakes, but I would always own up to them. I would say, "Yeah, this I'm going to be late on this because of this. I'm really sorry." And so I didn't leave them hanging. They always knew where they could reach me, and so then they would refer me to somebody else. Yeah, I had a good work experience with this guy. I'd send him to you. So things built from there.
Hmm. So when you said your prices were a little more expensive, like how did you base that on? Was it basically you talking to other designers in the industry to say this is what you should be charging, or did you just kind of know this is what I think my worth is?
No, I did it. I did that calculation that they taught us in school, which is like, this is how much money I need to earn a year.
Hmm.
Um, and this is how many hours I can work. This is the percentage of hours, working hours that are going to be billable.
Hmm.
Um, so therefore, this is how much I need to charge. And then I would try.
Uh,
Maybe somebody says no, that's way too expensive, or somebody else says yes, but way too quickly. And then I know I can need to make some adjustments. If I start losing a lot of projects, then I think maybe I need to adjust my prices, and just kind of going on it from there. So I know what my hourly rate needs to be nowadays.
hmm.
And I work around it. But then at the same time, like I said, there's not a lot of people that do what I do. And so sometimes clients will come to me and they'll say, "Look, I've talked to two other design agencies, two other specialists," and I'll say, "Look, hey, if you don't mind me asking, how much are they charging?" Especially when I don't get the contract, I'll ask them. Like,
Mm,
if they tell me they're not going to work with me, I say, "Look, hey, why not?" If they say, "Well, it was price. I want to work with you, but these other guys are cheaper." Okay, how much? And I'll always ask.
mm,
They won't always answer, but that kind of information really helps, and then I adjust from there.
got you. That's smart. I'm like I'm too reserved. I never asked that question. I probably should.
It definitely, like, being like really frank about talking about money helps. When I first started, I was so shy about talking about money that I would like start working for a client without ever discussing prices, without ever even signing a contract, and I get shafted so many times. Like afterwards, the client would be like, "What? I didn't think I'd be paying this much."
Yeah.
So I learned that like actually I'm good at what I do. It's worth money. They're willing to pay money. If they're not willing to pay the money, somebody else will be. I don't want to work with that person. So this is what I charge. This is what it's going to be. So when clients come to me now, we'll have a like a, just kind of an informal phone call to talk about the project, to talk about the timelines, what their needs are, whether or not I'm the right person for them, whether they're the right person for me. And at the end, I'll just say, "Hey, look, this is a tough question. You don't have to answer it, but do you have an idea of what your budget is for this kind of a project?" And
Right.
some of them say, "Yeah, it's this is what I want to spend." A lot of them will say, "I've never done this before. I've never worked with somebody like you. I don't know how much it's going to be. And I'll tell them, well, it's roughly in this ballpark. And then I wait and I'll see, And if there's like a silence after I mention that number, then I know I need to do some adjusting downwards. Sometimes they're just like, oh, yeah, okay, that's fine. And then I know we're good.
Mm, got you. So when I when I look at your work,
Hmm.
and well, I think I know the answer to this already based on what you said about you liking to be involved in sort of the entire process.
Yeah.
Um, Sometimes I'm not necessarily sure how to handle it when I have a project that there's a logo type or a logo involved, and then there's packaging or posters or some other design elements. Do you price the logo work separately, or do you price it all as part of the visual identity?
Well, with the food packaging, I break it down into three things. The first part is the research. I have a researcher who specializes in this.
Yeah.
So she'll look into what's happening in the market, what the competitors are doing. Then the second part will be the branding, which is like the ideas that underlie the product. So how we want people to feel about the product, what words we want to say, and the logo will happen in there. And then the
Mhm.
third part is on the graphic design on the packaging. So the logo just kind of happens in there
Mm.
in the branding section.
Got you. Got you.
Did that answer your question?
No, it did.
Okay.
So it seems like, yeah, well, at least from my interpretation of it, is that the logo is naturally integrated into that process. Um,
Yeah.
because sometimes I guess reason I was asking that is because I've heard people do certain things like I design a logo, so that means don't negotiate rights to using it in other products that sell or something like that, or
Mm.
negotiating percentages of it and all that kind of stuff, and of sales of future items and stuff like that. I
Oh
don't
wow.
know, that gets complicated and I don't know how that even works, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm not good at that kind of thing. I create the brand for them, and then when I make it easy for them. My idea is I just want it to be easy for me and easy for them. And then next year, when they're ready to come out with a second product, they call me again because
Hmm.
I'm the guy that made it easy, and I charge them a second time for the second product. And the year after that, they'll come back with a third one, and oh, we want to do a few more flavors, and oh, now we're doing a drink, and they just keep coming back because it was easy. Um, I don't think I want to keep track of percentages of this and that. I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not that good with numbers.
Do you ever hand over your working files? Is that a thing you do?
No, it's right in my contract that they get print files.
Hmm.
They don't get the working files, and honestly, they don't need the working files.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had a few instances where clients want them.
Yep,
Yeah,
yep. I've had clients ask.
yeah. So that's always a dicey thing for me.
Yeah, and I started putting it right in the contract in one of the sections that says like these are the deliverables. This is what you get. This is what you don't get. So there's no misunderstanding. And if they're picky about it, I'll explain. It's like you go to a restaurant, um, and you order a meal. You get that meal, but afterwards you don't get to go to the chef and say, okay, but I also want the recipe and all the ingredients to make it.
Hmm. Right. This is it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You get that final deliverable. That's it.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. And for my clients, most of the time, that's all they need. When they want other things, I'll usually do it for them. Sometimes they might say, look, we're hiring a graphic designer to do a whole bunch of little things, but I'm creating the brand as well as the packaging, I'm also usually making a style guide with all of the elements. So there's a logo package, here's all your colors, here's all your type, here's all your font files, here's all your patterns. So I'm giving them all of that stuff too, so
Hmm.
I can just give that to the other graphic designer that they've hired now,
Hmm.
and along with the style guide, they're then able to create whatever they need.
Got you. Got you. So, if there's any piece of advice you would give a designer or creative who's looking to pursue a freelance lifestyle, what would you give them?
Things have changed a lot now. When I started, we didn't have social media, Instagram and Pinterest and all of that. So maybe I'm a little out of touch. But the things that I know that worked best were to really focus on the business side as well. Um, Maybe don't spend too much time building a beautiful portfolio on Behance or on Instagram because your clients aren't there. You're sharing those with your peers, but your peers aren't hiring you. Um, Put your effort into your website, for instance, your personal website, because that's what clients are going to see. Put your effort into LinkedIn, of all things, because that's what the client sees. Um, and make sure that you know the business side of things really well. Have a good contract. Don't be shy about making sure your client signs that contract. Pay a lawyer once to go over that contract the first time and make sure everything's right in it. You can pull all the pieces off the web. You can find all the different pieces you need, put them all together, get a lawyer to clean it up, and then make sure that you always have that. But be good at that, the business side, about talking about money side. Don't be shy to reach out to people. Don't be shy to reach out to your whole network and say, look, I'm looking for work. And definitely when you're meeting with a client, don't be shy to talk about the money.
Mm, yeah, it's great advice. I don't think you're too out of touch in terms of that advice because the Instagram and all that is great. It's fun, but you're right. Like the clients generally aren't there unless you just happen to be lucky and
Yeah.
say like your client happens to stumble across you in some way or they're in street fashion or something like that and that's where they are. But
Yeah.
um, that's typically not where the business goes down.
Yeah. I mean, I know a friend that's become kind of a superstar with his design work on Instagram, and he's super well known and around the world, and he gets a lot of work that way. But that is super rare.
Yeah.
To be honest, I nobody knows who I am. I'm completely unknown, and I make a really really good living at what I do doing this because I mean I'm not putting the time and effort into the Instagram or into Behance or and whatnot. I'm putting my effort into where the clients are. So the clients know me. My peers might not know me as well, but that is, as I'm putting the effort in where it counts.
Yeah, I think this is something that I would really like young designers to be aware of actually because it's great to have a huge following and all of that kind of stuff and that validation feels good, but ultimately those followers aren't necessarily buying from you.
That's it.
So, yeah, it's like you're getting paid in dopamine, but dopamine can't pay rent. Uh,
That's nice. I like that.
yeah, there's
Yeah.
a lot of people with very, very large Instagram followings who are barely paying the bills. So
Yeah, that's it.
be aware.
Yeah, and sometimes that kind of Instagram fame is really just about like you've got a style and maybe for some reason out of your control it just happens to catch on and you get big, but it's really luck. You can
Yeah.
put a lot of work into it and you can be just as good as somebody who gets famous and you won't get that recognition. And neither of you, the one with recognition and the one without, is actually getting any money out of it. So maybe it's not really it's not worth it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So, Sunil, is there anything you have going on that you want to promote, or is it just kind of like smooth sailing for you here?
um, I gosh, I don't have any like personal art projects these days. I'm embarrassed to admit this. Um, I on the side I do like sketching. I do word puzzles and I kind of make felt puppets, but nothing that I want to really promote. They're just my own hobbies. Um, so that would be about it. I guess if you want to have funny tweets, follow me on Twitter. But
All
that's
right,
my.
drop your Twitter link.
It's at Sunil Sarwal.
Okay, and what's your website?
The website is The Small Monsters with an S at the end. TheSmallMonsters.com.
Okay, great. So yeah, check out his work. It's phenomenal. It's on his website. It's not on Instagram. And check out those tweets. And yeah, Sunil, thank you for taking the time to do this. I
Thank you so
appreciate
much,
it.
Joy. This is great.
Thank you so much for listening to the Art Pays Me podcast. Thank you to Langy Beats for the theme music. If you got anything out of this show, please rate, review, and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on. The more you do this, the more reach the podcast gets, and the more artists I can help learn to make a living at what they love. If you want to know more about what I do, hit me up at artpaysme.com or at artpaysme on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and Pinterest. See y'all next time.